So whether it was on Eretz, which was the earth, or it was within the earth plane, which is Nesser, either way, they were trying to graft and create and form whoever these beings were, these humans or humane beings were, after their image and after their likeness, to see if they would pass certain tests. And one of the tests would be, would you be tempted to the point of submitting to the lust, or would you be able to adhere to saying, yo, you can access all these other degrees, just don't go toward this root or this fruit. Okay, we want to develop that crown first. All right, how about this? They said you can eat of every tree except the tree in the midst of the garden. Well, then why didn't they stumble across the tree of life? Because if they would have been able to access whatever that science was, or the lengthic telomere that would allow them to literally become immortal or beyond death. So they said that if you eat of the tree in the midst of the garden, on the day that you eat thereof, you shall surely or certainly die. Now, a lot of people disagree about what the death was about. Some people say a spiritual death. Some people say a literal or physical death, or mut, saying you were supposed to literally die, or metta or methu. You were supposed to be dead or have actually died or passed away. However, if you were saying there was a literal physical death, Adam went on to be 939 years old. You understand? They went on to live much longer than that one day or yom period of time that they should have died in. If you were saying certainly they would have died in that day. So there may have been more to the conversation. So the truth being, it wasn't the fruit that killed Eve. It wasn't the fruit that killed Adam. It was their being cast out of that garden of delight that killed them. Because they said we have to remove them out of the garden, all right, lest they eat of the tree of life and live forever. Okay, so whatever nature was in Adam and Eve at that point, of whoever those beings were, or whoever those subjects of that experiment were, they didn't want them to touch that tree. So they had already decided in their mind that whoever those beings were, they had become corrupt because they failed the test. Okay, and that test was of lust. That test was of pleasure. That test was of, once you're exposed to this type of light, if we say don't go toward it, will you go toward it? Or will you abstain and be like the maidens who were pure, or be like the nuns, which is, you're saying the same thing, it's just that they flipped it. The maidens were the ones who, like in the Holy Tablets, Malachi spoke about them. The pure maidens were the ones who man had not touched them. You understand? None of the men, none of the Luciferians, none of the jinn had touched the maidens. Okay? In Revelation chapter 14, verse 4, they speak of a group of beings who were referred to as the 144,000, go figure. And that was the 144, which is 1 plus 4 plus 4 equals 9, or none. Okay? Meaning they had accessed the light and they had not yet been defiled. In the biblical scripture, they refer to them as women. Okay? In the story of the maidens, they say that the man had not touched them. Whoever it was, they had remained virtuous. You understand? They had to become vicious. They were virtuous. Why am I saying that? Because the word vish means poison. Are you with me? And when you say somebody is vicious, you're saying they're acting in a poisonous manner. These people become chaotic. These people become destructive. So they were virtuous as opposed to vicious. All right? Or they were not after the order of the Nephilim, okay, or the nefarious beings. They were not nefarious. They were virtuous. When you get into the 7 deadlies or the 7 lowlies, and there's another plane that speaks about the 7 heavenlies or the 7 virtuosities. Are you with me? So there aren't just 7 deadly sins, there are 7 virtuosities. The point is, the fruit that was given to Adam and Eve was literally the fruit that came from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Some people stop at the tree of knowledge. No, it wasn't just a tree of knowledge. It was a tree of knowledge between what was called Nawar or Nuwar. So you have Nawar, which is fire, and you have Nuwar, which is light. You literally say Nur. All right? So they had the knowledge between the amber and the emerald. They had the knowledge between what Moses taught, the oil that Moses brought, the illuminating oil. If you say Moses backwards, you get sesum. All right? In Latin, you say sestamum, which literally means oil. And then you have the oil that came with the anointed one, who was Christ, who stood on something called Mount Olive. And what is olive? An oil. Are you with me? And you say olive, you're saying alive. Okay? And olive is saying evolve, Eve olive. And those who evolved, meaning they reached the Eve state, okay, and became alive. They evolved. That's why in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, we speak about forming man out of that same Adamah, okay, dust of the ground, the lowly area, that realm in Nesset, and we breathed into that, whatever that spirit was or that ruach was, that allowed for them, if they so choose or chose to, evolve. They gave them the opportunity to evolve into Eve or be like these pure maidens who found the light. Okay, so that you can be virtuous again. So you can figure out how long you've been down here. Are you with me? And you can find your way back home. ET, those of you who became elect, all right, could phone home, make a connection back to that sound like I taught you. ET, phone, phonetics, home, home. And when you find out that they say home is where the heart is, that's only the beginning. The floor of the home, that new home that you'll be getting to, is where the heart is, which is that green light. You understand? So they chose to go with that fruit or that root, all right? And that root was letting them know, here's the knowledge of good and evil. They gave them the Torah, all right? But yet they were not ready for the Torah. You understand? They hadn't figured out whatever the principles were that allowed for them to really be prepared for that. That's why they were only being exposed to Tob, not the Torah. They were only being exposed to the good. They wanted to activate and cultivate, which is the word sativa. Those of you who know what I'm speaking about, some of y'all speak of it in terms of marijuana. Listen, wana, okay? You say this is sativa. Sativa is a word that means to cultivate. Are you with me? And if you say sativa, there's another word in Sanskrit that appears alongside that word sattva, S-A-T-T-V-A, which means to know a thing or to become savvy, like we've spoken about before. And what is a Sabian or a Sabian? Supposed to be someone who's in the order of the stars, but you have the choice at that point because it will explain to you that those who walk after Osiris or Osiris, all right, were actually a part of the group of people who was associated with the deceased ones in the underworld. Okay, so you have to choose which part of these people were you going to be associated with. The ones who fell in the underworld or the ones who went up into the higher planes, which we'll get into that as we continue to build. So when you're saying sativa or sattva, you're saying someone who's knowing a thing. You become like the alim, the knowing one. All right, so it was a knowledge of good and evil. So they were exposed to the red and the green light. They were exposed to the Tov, which is the good or the green, and the Ra'ah, which is the red. All right, so if you're asking what was the fruit, what do we think it was the knowledge of good and evil. Literally, they say it in the book of Genesis. And then you'll understand when you study it that you're speaking about a polarity that mankind wasn't supposed to be exposed to yet because they were trying to cultivate the good in you because it takes more time to cultivate that because it's easier for those of you, if you're familiar with Al-Quran, and when I bring it up, it said Iblis was the one who wanted to make disobedience fair seeming. He didn't have to work hard to do that because it's actually easier to lust than it is to love. It's easier to hurt someone than it is to heal someone. It's easier to jump down off of a cliff than it is to climb back up it. Okay? It's easier to go from a level of higher concentration, focus, concentration, to a level of lower concentration than it is to go from a level of lower concentration to a level of higher concentration. You understand? So they were trying to cultivate that in you, which allowed for you to ascend and become ascended masters before you were exposed to these lowly sciences. But here came Nekas, okay, which was Nakasha, okay, which is the whispering one, which we'll get into that science as well as we break down more of the levels of hell and who's overrated, who's associated with it, that revealed to Eve what they revealed, and they did tell her the truth. That's another thing. He told her the truth. However, he didn't tell her what's called the totus, or the whole, or holy truth. You say, you tell the truth, not just the truth. Do you wish to, or swear, or affirm that you're going to tell the truth, the whole truth? All right, so help you Allah, or God. You understand? You're going to tell the whole truth. Who was supposed to help you tell the whole truth? God. Okay, which became another being called Kidder, all right, the green one, okay, Melchizedek, or Enoch, Idris, a few other beings who had been exposed to that whole truth. And Moses swore he knew the whole truth. No, Moses knew the truth, but he didn't know the whole truth. God had to help him. So do you swear or do you affirm to tell the truth and the whole truth, so help you God, so help you Elohim, so help you El Elo, the source, so help you Anu, so help you any of the messengers that came in that name. Remember, you test those people who claim they come in the name of the Most High, or the name of the source, or the name of Allah. See if they make sense. See if they can make it make sense, because some things don't make sense. That's why Malachi brought forth the science. He gave a command. He said, make it make sense. Even if it doesn't make it to their senses, make it to their senses. And the only way that you can make it make sense for people that you claim are asleep is you have to know what it feels like to be in their bed. Or you have to know what it feels like to be up under covers. You understand? Or undercover. You have to know what it feels like to infiltrate. You have to know what it feels like to be a part of the same binding orientations that they're a part of that you call your religions. Okay? That's how you make the real lives go on. Religion. How you gonna make the real lives go on if you don't even know where the religions that people are coming from? Are you with me? So you can't make it make sense to people. You can't make it to people's senses unless you fully understand. So for those of you who are brushing off hell to just be some concept of the mind, you can't make it make sense because you can't explain that, because you're breaking a law when you try to explain it and say, oh, it's only in the head, because you have forgotten the law of correspondence. Your core responds to things that are outside of you, and the things that are outside of you responds to your core. Are you with me? That's why we gave you the core up, which was a recitation, Qur'an, which gave you the Qur'an. And we'll get into all that. So the answer to your question is it was the knowledge of good and evil, the red and the green light. It was a choice, all right? That without that willpower, it's like you might as well have just resorted to calling it an illusion of choice. Without willpower, you can't surpass Moses' world of the Red Sea and make it to the junction of the Niles to get up to where people like Enoch were able to get up to become literally angels. Remember, Enoch was a human being, and he became an angel. All right, let's go. Let's break it down. Let's build it up too. What else y'all got for me?
Okay, yeah. I got this right here. We're gonna get bite right down into it. We're gonna bite right down into it. All right, so the first question, well, the second question we got for you is, okay, because I know Elijah Muhammad talked about hell, and I heard all the perspectives, and I collected all of them. Well, not all of them. I don't think I heard all of them, but I heard a lot of different perspectives. Now, some people say hell is listed, like you just said, a place in the mind. In ancient Kemet, we looked at it as the underworld, or you go to the underworld. And all religions, really, most all the concepts that deal with spiritual, esoteric information got a concept of some kind of dark place where bad people go. Could you break down your perspective on what is hell? Just get right there. What is hell? Like the different perspectives that you collected on hell, on what is hell, and what's the ultimate end you think? Do people actually, bad people actually go to a place called hell? Go ahead.
Okay. Ask this question. Do people who want to turn up go to the club? Ask this question. Do people who want to worship go to a church or a mosque or a masjid? Ask this question. Do people who want to be entertained go to the Super Bowl or any arena like the Gladiators? Okay, you have locations, places. Do you have to worship in a church? No, you can turn your home to a church or a holy place or a shrine, correct? All right, so then what people are getting confused, especially in the conscious community, all right, there's a little confusion in the religion as well, but it's only because they don't have the science to what they're speaking about. But the conscious community took it to a whole nother degree because they only limited it to be an actual place in your brain or a state of mind or a state of existence yielded from your state of mind. All right, so let's watch this. I was talking to one of the brothers on one of the Instagram lives, and I broke it down this way. Let's say we got Atlanta. Atlanta separated into two different main places. Let's just say that for the sake of conversation. We got two different main places for this conversation. Bankhead and Buckhead. All right? Bankhead, state of hell. Hell. You understand? You could literally say that if you're sending somebody to Bankhead, you're sending them to hell. So let's say Bankhead, the location is hell, the location. All right? Now, for some people, you might have to say that 47 times for them to understand that you're speaking about a location, not a state. Okay? Because why? There's been a curse word placed out there, which is state itself. It says, I'm in the state of Georgia. And you don't know that when they're asking about the state of Georgia, they're not talking about the landmass. They're speaking about the condition. Are you with me? When you talk about a status, what's your status or your status? You understand? You're asking somebody what their state is, not the land that they're in. All right? So that confused people. So let's make sure we're getting it clear. When I'm speaking on Bankhead, as an analogy, we're speaking about hell as a location, a place. So let's say I'm in a center somewhere. I'm in Marietta somewhere. All right? If I can drive to Bankhead, let's say I send myself to hell. I'm going to take myself to hell, Bankhead. That's from wherever I was, Marietta. Let's say Marietta is the earth plane that you human beings are, or us human beings are on. The earth plane, the next realm. All right? Up under that first layer or vault, which you refer to as the firmament or the rakia, okay, where they placed all your stars and the rest of the things that they speak about in the book of Job. Okay, let's say that from the level that you're on now, called the earth, the crust, Eretz, all right, up to the highest point that you could probably fathom, which is the atmosphere, which everyday scientists are telling you go further and further and further, all right, than what they ever told you before. Now they're saying the moon is in the atmosphere. Now they're saying all these planets and stuff might be in your Earth's atmosphere. How is that possible? Because you may not be aware of how far out or how much space there is, okay, when it comes to the first layer, or what you refer to as the 7 layers of heaven. Are you with me? So let's say from the ground up to the firmament, if you believe in it, or whatever you want to call it, you can call it the magnetosphere, you call it the atmosphere, or the vast space that is associated with your plane, okay? This is your abode. This is where you live. If that's the analogy of Marietta, then you drive from Marietta to Bankhead. That means you're going from the earth plane that you're existing in currently to a location called hell. Again, I could throw 1,000 analogies in there and people still will be like, it's a state. I'm speaking about a place. Hell, the location. All right? Now, if we're going based off of the religious assertions, we're speaking of the pit, or Sheol, or Naraka, or Jahannam, or Hades, or the underworld, or the realm of the netherworld, or Duat, whatever you call it. They're saying it is a place that you go to. Are you with me? In order for there to be a state that's affected by your state of mind, that state or that place, as you calling it, which is the confusion word, had to be there to begin with. So we're speaking about a location. All right? So from Marietta, I go to Bankhead. That is the place of hell. And when we get there, niggas is shooting each other. Niggas is robbing each other. You scared to walk to the mailbox because you don't know if you got to duck bullets. All right? You scared to go to the ATM. You looking over your shoulder. You can't eat in silence. You getting robbed in your sleep. It's shootouts happening while you resting. You're in a state of constant chaos. This is Bankhead. You go to Buckhead, you got people walking they fucking chihuahuas and poodles and shit hanging out of purses. You know what I mean? You got the picket fence with the white the dog and the motherfucker back there playing the flute for some reason. You say, this is heaven. You see literal milk packets and honey cartons and all this other shit on the fucking side of the road. Y'all know what I mean? And all this is heavenly. You know what I'm saying? You say, I'm in heaven. This is a haven, a safe haven for me to be. All right, those are the places. That doesn't mean that Bankhead can't be heavenly. That doesn't mean that Buckhead can't turn into a state of hell. What we're saying is, for one, you didn't build the realm you're playing in. Let's think about that. If I ask anybody who claims that hell does not exist as a location, how do you know? How do you really know? Let me tell you something. You don't. You don't know. Mm-hmm. Why? Because you either haven't had the opportunity to explore, like myself, I have, and we can get into that, or you are right here living in the conscious realm that we're living in, which means you haven't died to be able to determine whether or not there are beings who say go this way and that way, and you don't have a choice of whether or not you're going to listen. You don't have the language or the passwords that can even call yourself a God and say, wait a minute, I'm God of the earth. Why do I have to go to hell? No, I'm God. I run this. Only me. What happens when you're dealing with forces way beyond you probably able to understand, and they say, go to hell. You know what I'm saying? And you don't have no choice. You're on the boat already going. You understand? Who do you control that? So because you've never crossed that threshold, in order for you to tell people that hell is only in their mind, you have to willingly lie to them, because you can't lie to yourself. Mm-hmm. You know yourself that you don't know whether or not hell is a place because you haven't been all corners of the universe to test to see whether or not it's a place. Mm. So if you're going around telling people hell is not a place, it's only in the mind, you're a liar. And you know you're a liar because you haven't gone to see. You would have to tell me you've been to every inch of this reality that you refer to as an infinite plane, whatever the fuck you think that is. You have to tell me you've actually been consciously, okay? Meaning you can recall and describe every inch of this plane to be able to tell me, or any plane, to be able to tell me that there is no actual location. So let's kill all that. There are locations, okay? So let's get into the Bankhead. Bankhead is hell. If people go there, then they're sent to hell, all right? That means that whatever is happening in that place, whoever set it up that way, whether there was a lack of resources, whatever the fuck caused that place to be in that place, whoever set it up that way could easily wave their hand and cause it to not be hell anymore. However, that is the location where hell is taking place. So the only reason why a lot of people say hell isn't a place, for one, let's say the main reason, not the only reason, the main reason is they wish and hope and pray that that place ain't real. Mm-hmm. For one, they resent the idea that one day somebody's going to send them to a place to be judged. All right? And why is that? Because they can only think of the fire. They can only think of the torment. They can only think of all of these things, but they're not looking at what the whole cause of it would have been. You're not being sent there because they don't have anything else to do but to just send you to burn for eternity. No, the purpose of purgatory, all right, was to cleanse you. Why did you have to be cleansed? Because before you crossed over that threshold, you didn't clean whatever was a part of your essence that would have allowed you to ascend. Mm. Are you with me? So for the people who were cast into that realm, or people who are in that realm currently, they're being purged. And everybody has a time which is referred to as the day of standing, okay, where you will be called forth for everything that you've done. There's nothing that you can do. The time is up. You call it a day of recompense. You call it a day of judgment. Everybody has that day and time, Yom Din. And everybody also has to face Yom Kiyama, which is called the resurrection. And if you don't believe in either, that's fine. However, you know that there comes a day that everything you know fades away. And that's the day that you so-called die. That is the day that you transition. So that is the moment which will be the most humblest moment, all right, that you will have to face, where you can't say anything anymore. If you didn't make it known to yourself, if you didn't expose yourself to the true light, then you're not of the knowing. You have no control over what happens to you at that point, because you didn't take control over what happens to you while you had the opportunity to. Which is why they said, we swear by the time, keep that in mind. We swear by the time, all right, that all of you have to face that day, you will be losing. This is what was put in Al-Quran and Al-Issa. All right, we swear by the time that you will be losing, and somebody had to step in and intervene. They sent reminders and people who will warn you about Jahannam. They sent people who will warn you about the lower planes and say not just about the lower planes, you should be familiar with the higher planes. So from perspective, let's get into it. From the perspective of phase one, Omari, I like the word perspective because it's per my speculation, literally, per my speculation from the things that I've seen with my eyes, not the eyes that you can see, you know what I'm saying, behind these shades or that I'm looking at you with, but the eyes of my astral body. There is not just a place, there are places beneath this ground we're standing on that are other abodes or worlds that look similar to this one. I've seen mountains, I've seen the hills, I've seen the trees, some with leaves, some without leaves. I saw the stars, I saw different moons. There are abodes beneath our feet that I was allowed to travel to astrally. Okay, for those of you who are not familiar with astral projection, there is a point through your transitioning between awakening and sleep state that allows for you to disconnect from this physical body, as you call it. And you can travel different planes in this reality that you're connected to, or you can go around in this reality that you're connected to and see different parts of this world. On the plane. And all these different books have been talking about for a long time, okay, but other people have only spiritualized it, and now you got people saying, oh, it's only a daydream and all this. No, it's an actual occurrence, okay, where you have a body inside of your body that is able to travel to places that you're not able to physically travel because you're not allowed to. This is scientific, by the way, because with this type of form, because of how dense it is, you wouldn't be able to pass through certain gates anyway. That's why they hide certain gems to say no flesh can inherit the kingdom. It wasn't saying that it's impossible for somebody that has the flesh body to inherit it, but they were laying a gem there that says that you have to take on certain forms to go through certain vaults or doors of vaults or gates. Are you with me? Meaning if you as a human being even attempted to jump onto one of the sham or crafts or move, all right, and travel and take the journey, leaving out of the earth plane, once they travel toward the sun and go through the sun, you wouldn't survive anyway, unless there was some type of transformation that you underwent, or you were given some type of garb, which would be some type of protective layer over the self or spacesuit that would allow for you to endure going through a whole star. Are you with me? All of the different degrees and the heat and the pressure of going through it. You as a human being would not survive. People can't survive standing out for 75 degrees, 80 degrees. Are you with me? So the point is, I was allowed to go beneath the earth plane erects, this layer that we're sitting at right here, up under one of the vaults, okay, which is that firmament, all right? I was allowed to go beneath this plane, and I saw different levels as I was literally falling down beneath those levels. I'm trying to see how much of the details I'm going to render, because it started off as a regular astral projection. As I left my body, I went through my ceiling. I went on this Ferris wheel type movement, because there's something in the astral plane that I call the current that allows for you to move around without controlling your body. It just pulls you. And I allowed that current to drop me off through the ground, and I kept falling through about 7 levels. Keep that in mind. That's very important. And upon that last level, I was in pitch black darkness. And I could feel the wind as I was falling. It's another thing to keep in mind, that when I say body, I'm speaking that it operates the same way your body does here, just in a different state of observation. okay, or a different state of conscious, okay, or consciousness. So I was able to feel the wind all the way down into this cold like realm, and I was falling with the wind, not hearing any sound up until the point where I finally hit the ground, which felt like crystal amethyst type texture. And when I hit that ground, that's when I heard the sound. What did I hear, young elder? I heard what sounded like football fields of people. And those people were screaming out. So it didn't sound like any high-pitched sound. If you just can think back to if you've ever been in a football stadium, when people cheer, it doesn't sound high-pitched. It sounds like a roaring sound. You understand? When you get all those people together. So if you can imagine like 10 football fields full of people, I heard the voices of millions. You understand? And they were screaming. And it wasn't so much so they were screaming out in agony. They were screaming out as if somebody was to hear them and they were trying to get their attention. You understand? Like a crazy person in prison who is suffering from the effects of solitary confinement. They're screaming because, you know, it's like it's a hesitation, or what do you call it? An agitation. And, you know, they're screaming to be heard. Are you with me? So as soon as I hit that ground, which whatever layer was broken when I hit that ground, I was able to hear the sounds of those people. There were 12 beings. Do I know the exact number? No. However, when you're in the astral plane, your senses are heightened. So you're more aware of certain things. So the number that I heard or resonated with was 12. There were 12 beings that started to close in on me. And these beings were vicious beings. As soon as, if you can imagine throwing bread in the center of some pigeons, all right? That's how it felt. And these beings were closing. I was there for all of 5 seconds. I heard the sorrowful sound of all those people. I felt these beings rushing to grab me. And I have a switch in my body, or my being, that allows for me, no matter how far I travel from my astral body, I call it a switch. I don't know what some of you call it, for those of you who travel or project. But that switch is, as soon as I hit it, I'm able to return to my body. It's a mental switch. I hit that mental switch, and I didn't have to travel up through the planes. I snapped right back to my body, and I jolted up, and I was breathing fast. My heart was beating fast, and I made a joke to myself, and it was funny. I said, man, I would have been mad as hell. Then I burst out laughing because I'm like, it was a pun to myself that I literally was in hell. And why I said I would have been mad as hell is because I know, for one, in that moment, something occurred. I said human beings aren't allowed to go and see that and experience that. And there wasn't any fire. Keep in mind this. There was no fire in what I was able to behold or see, at least not in that realm. There was no fire. It was pitch black darkness. I wasn't allowed to see it, or it's really dark like that there. So that's something to think about. Maybe I just wasn't allowed to see or behold it. Maybe my eyes weren't able to work there. However, my ears did. So either it's pitch black there, triple black darkness, or it's really fire and all this other stuff happening and I wasn't allowed to see. But I heard the people. So the first thing popped out, I said, people aren't allowed